And I think a lot of people were like, wow, that's amazing that you're able to secure that much. But then I also shared with them, like, I said no to over $100,000 in partnerships in 2024 because they just didn't align. It just wasn't going to make sense. But that doesn't hold you back from the right opportunities.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Elevators Podcast.
That's right. Welcome back to another episode. You know, it's my favorite time of the week to be here with you all. Girl, this week literally came in swinging. I feel like this
Oh
week
my
had
God.
hands.
How have you been?
Girl, my goodness. I've been really good. But this week was just like a lot. What about you? I know you just came back from like your trip with New York Fashion Week, and I know you produced some events this week. Congratulations. By the way, my girl looks good. If you haven't seen on her Instagram, please go look into her page. Krystal, you was giving looks at Fashion Week. Like, I love that outfit.
Girl.
And I'm so proud of you and Naomi for the space that you guys are creating with Fortune and Forks. I know the girls were so excited to attend your event. Tell us about it. How was everything?
I think you described it in a perfect way. The last week was a lot, but it was a lot in a good way. A lot of moving, a lot of traveling, a lot of socializing, which was always fun. A lot of producing and just a lot. And I'm just very grateful, thank God, that my plate is full, and I'm able to eat off of it. So God is amazing. But the events were amazing. Everything worked out well, thankfully. And then I came back home after traveling for like a week or so between New York and then DC. And then I got sick, girl.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
so sick. And yeah, so I was like out for the count for like 1 or 2 days, but I'm back and I feel much better. Thank God, because I hate sounding nasally on the podcast. It's so annoying. But yeah, I'm good. Everything's been good. How are things with you?
Everything's good. I'm glad that you're feeling better. But yeah, everything has been well. Just been working this week, getting things going. You guys know I moved not too long ago, but I feel like moving is just like a process that you got to just continuously get things together. I'm excited for this lock in that I know we talked about before, because that's what I'm doing for the rest of the year, is locking in on everything that I said I was going to do, that I'm going to do. But I've been doing really good. So yeah, I'm excited. Girl, so much happened this week. So we have a lot to talk about. Okay.
Oh
We're
my
going to
God.
get into the unfiltered segment in a second. But even beyond that, you all have to stay tuned listening to the show, because we have a very special guest, Emmy Petit. Yes, my girl Emmy is joining us for a very important topic, because we're noticing not only are we, of course, media journalists, host, and, you know, we do all the things, but we also are in the content creating space. And there's a shift, y'all, that's happening where some of the girlies are going back to work and some of the corporate girlies are becoming content creators. We're talking about the creator economy. So you definitely want to continue listening to the show. But before that, I have a review. So let's get into our review for today. First and foremost, you guys, thank you so much for the reviews that you share on the show. We love getting reviews. Tap into the speak pipe if you can. But, all right, so for our review, this is from Jewel Flame. So Jewel said, "This is such an elevated girl talk podcast. I enjoy listening to you both, and we enjoy you so much." Thank you so much for that. Love these reviews. Like, they really just keep us going, y'all. So keep them coming.
Yes, and make sure you guys are leaving us speak pipes. Don't be shy. We want to hear what you have to say. Happy to give any advice and guide you all however we can. So leave us a voice note on speak pipe. It's 100% anonymous. So be nice. And now let's jump into our unfiltered segment. Y'all,
Let's talk about it.
there's so much going on. Ugh, I don't even know where to start. Amanda and I were going through this, like, what pop culture topic should we talk about? Because it's too much.
It was a lot. The news cycle this week, I was like, you know, some weeks it's like, you know, it's a little. The news cycle this week, like, came in with a lot. Like, there was so much going on. But something that I really feel like touched home for us was the story of Jimmy Kimmel. So if you don't know, Jimmy Kimmel Live, which is the show, of course, hosted by the comedian Jimmy Kimmel, has been suspended indefinitely for comments and remarks that he made on his show regarding Charlie Kirk. And this came down to ABC from, I want to say it was like either Nexstar or Sinclair, that they're indefinitely suspending the show. So it doesn't necessarily say that his show is canceled, but we don't know if that means that it's going to be canceled or what have you. But this topic just brings up, for me, how free is our speech? Like, is our speech really free? as it relates to being a host or, someone who has a show, to know that you can make a comment that may not be favorable and just have the potential of having your show indefinitely suspended. So I
It's so
wanted to talk
crazy.
about this. How do you feel about it?
And this kind of it doesn't completely like align with what we're going to talk about later, but like the fact that we have to like put on for these brands and platforms is always going to like mind boggle me. Like so crazy. But anyways, so first of all, I want to clarify that he Ap according to the headlines, his show has been suspended because of his quote unquote comment about Charlie. But the reality is, if you saw it and you hear what he said, it wasn't even about he didn't say anything about him. Actually, he had more to say about Donald Trump. So listen to it because he was actually saying that he was basically making fun of the fact that Donald Trump's response to Charlie Kirk's murder was just flat out careless, basically. So it's so crazy to me. I'm with you. Like I'm like, what's going on with this freedom of speech, especially as like a journalist and media platforms. We're all like, what is going on here? Because we know that when governments shift from democracy to whatever else it's gonna shift from,
Mhm.
the one of the first things to go is freedom of speech. So it's very scary to see that they're trying to basically silence him, especially because they're trying to like make it seem like it's about like this Charlie Kirk guy when in reality he didn't really say much about him. So that's one thing. But for me, I also noticed like the fact that there's so many headlines saying that that is why his
Yeah.
show is being suspended is like such lazy,
Mhm.
poor journalism to me. Like seeing that headline on so many different platforms is so lazy to me because anybody with a bird brain can watch the clip and see that it's not about that. The entire literally he said Charlie Kirk for 1 second and the rest of it was about Donald Trump's response and
Yeah.
the things that he's been doing. So just to see all these headlines say like his show is suspended indefinitely because of his comment about Charlie Kirk was frustrating because that's not the case. Another thing to this, like another layer to this to me is like it's actually kind of wild that this is happening.
Mhm.
And I'm like wondering if this is just a sort of scapegoat and they have wanted to get him off air for a while because it doesn't make sense. Like if you think about so Amanda and I, as you guys know, we've told you that we work in media. So when you work in news and media, you're supposed to be unbiased, but you're supposed to be reporting on what's happening,
Mhm.
what all parties are saying, and just
Mhm.
reporting on it. You're not supposed to really give your opinion, that sort of thing. We save that for the opinion, columns and so on and so forth, or like the on-air personality stuff, right? But when you're news reporting, you're news reporting. But when you're an on-air personality, you're able to give your opinion on those things because people are listening for your opinion. So that's sort of like the foundation of what I'm about to say.
Mhm.
So Jimmy Kimmel, people are looking at his stuff for his opinion. He's a personality. He's not a news reporter.
And a
So the fact
comedian.
and
And
a
a
comedian,
comedian.
most importantly. So the fact that they're trying to suspend his show, quote unquote, for him having a personality and a take on things doesn't make sense to me. It is
It's
just
not a news
weird.
show.
It's not a new show. So it's just odd to me. And, I understand that, when we work for certain platforms and we sign, those contracts as news reporters, you are agreeing to not having your own political opinion, not only on their platform, but your own personal platforms, like your social media and stuff like that. You're
Mhm.
not allowed to really have a public political opinion. Same, so to speak, like teachers, right? Like you're
Mhm.
really supposed to be unbiased. So that's one agreement. But with Jimmy Kimmel, it's like I'm sure his lawyers um X that part out of his contract because that doesn't make sense. People are going to him for his opinions, for his comedic angle on
Mhm.
what's happening in whether pop culture today or, the political climate. So it's just a weird situation to me all around. Like, I don't like the way people are reporting on it. I don't understand why, he would be in trouble for literally his job. Like, it's just an odd situation. And like, the math ain't mathin'.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's what's happening here. It's definitely like a conversation about censorship and how much you really can express yourself on a platform that you've been expressing yourself on for years. One thing I'm happy to know that his staff is going to be paid, I think, for another week or 2 weeks because Jimmy Kimmel employs like over 200 employees, by the way. So I did see that. And God rest the dead. I'm not saying anything in relations to Charlie Kirk. I know he was assassinated and murdered and all that, but I don't want to say anything about as it relates to politics or anything like that. But what I will say is I feel like people are using, specifically, I feel like the Trump administration are using Charlie Kirk's life just for examples to make examples out of people. Does that make sense? Like I feel like they're trying to make examples to I don't know. It just feels really weird. And I feel like we're in a space where we just can't fully express ourselves. And I think that there is a lesson here though, is you have to be careful when working with like these brands and just having your show represented by, you know, these different media conglomerates that sometimes you really can't say what you really want to say. And I think
Mhm.
that Jimmy Kimmel, it's time for you to get a podcast. It's time for you to get your own show. It's time for you to have
Mhm.
your own platform where you're not going to be censored on the things that you want to say and that you could speak freely. Because when you do work for like, you know, ABC, Disney, or any of these brands, like you're under their umbrella. So I just feel really bad for him in that regard, that I feel like he's used as an example for what he did. And I also think that they didn't even give him like an opportunity to apologize. Like they didn't even, I don't know if that was presented as an
That's what I'm
option.
saying, it's weird,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't make
like,
sense. It doesn't
yeah,
make
people have
sense.
done more for less and never had things canceled. So I just think that, yeah, girl, it's weird
It's
times.
very odd. Honestly, like, I don't wanna spend too much time on it, but,
Yeah.
like, I think it's so important to talk about certain things like this
Mhm.
on this show because we need to be very aware of, like, what's happening around us and, like, not be dodo birds and pretending like the world isn't burning around us. You get what I'm saying? But I think the one thing to take away from this is, like, what they give, they will take, and they can take. So, like, if you are
Mm.
working, you know, if even at your jobs, like, it can be applied to any sort of like asset in your life. It's like what people give you, they can take from you. And you also need to make sure you have like your own leg to stand on if God forbid anything happens.
Absolutely. So true. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
And this low key segues into our next segment. Given that we're talking about like how these companies will fire you at the blink of an eye, at the drop of a dime, they don't care. So now we're going to turn into our conversation where we're talking about the corporate girlies going to content and the content girlies going to corporate. I'm so excited for this next special guest. Amanda, take it away.
That's right. I'm so excited because we have a very special show for you. We are going to welcome my girl, Emmy Petit, to the show. She is a influencer extraordinaire. She has over 250K followers on her Instagram and growing, but she showcases lifestyle, beauty, and fashion. And she is just teaching everyone how to be confident in what they do. But she's also very special for this conversation because she also comes from the brand agency side prior to being a content creator. So, Emmy, welcome to our show. How are you feeling?
I feel so good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I think this topic is just really hot right now. So let's get into it.
So, Emmy, give the girlies a background on who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So, as a content creator, like Amanda mentioned, I speak to fashion, beauty, and lifestyle. I've worked with some of, the top brands like Nordstrom, Target, Walmart. But also on the corporate side of things, I've worked brand side and I've worked agency side, where I've been able to do social media marketing, content marketing, and most importantly, influencer marketing for some top beauty brands, as well as some of your favorite apps like Bumble. I've worked with Pepsi on their strategy, developing from the front end to the back end of all their influencer marketing campaigns, and some beauty brands like L'Oreal, Trilogy Skincare. I've just really dibbled and dabbled into all of the different avenues of marketing and influencer marketing, front facing as a creator, and then also as a corporate marketing strategist.
Love that. We love that. Now, as somebody who came from the corporate side of things, now you're on the creator side of things. What
Mhm.
was it that made you want to just take that leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm going to do this content thing full throttle, like literally just full time? And like, was there like a special moment where you were like, okay, I'm going to find success in this? Like, I know that I'm going to be really skilled in this area.
Yeah, I think for me, and I don't know if anyone relates to this, but like I've always loved the internet space. Like I call myself an internet kid. I was the friend who helped my friends create their MySpace profiles. Let me break this code so you could have a pink background instead of a white background. Listen, I was doing all of that. So I've always really loved the creative side of the internet, but I was so afraid. I was so afraid to kind of like fully show myself. I would create different blogs and kind of like keep them in hiding, but just kind of just create them for myself. But I would say when I was working at a beauty brand in 2019, we partnered with a creator and we cut her a check for like, I want to say $18,000 for 3 Instagram posts. And I was
Ooh.
like, ma'am, what are you doing with your life? Like, you need to quit playing around. You know, you want to do this. I think that was the moment when I was like, I vividly remember calling my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, listen, we're going to start taking pictures. We are like, I'm not afraid anymore. We need to do this. And that October, I took it very seriously. And by the next year, I was actually full time.
Emmy seen that
Wow.
check and she said, "Hold on now. Hold
Listen,
on."
like,
Go
how you
ahead.
making half of my salary with these 3 Instagram posts? Girl, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, you know,
Girl, that's
so
crazy.
yeah, I think that's absolutely crazy too. I was gonna say, what do you think now? Like, I know we've all worked in this space as well and have
Mhm.
experience, working with brands, but like I've heard some really astronomical numbers as it relates to like even one post. What's the craziest number you guys have heard when it comes to content creating?
I have paid someone for one TikTok $165,000.
Wow. How many followers did they have?
2 million.
Ugh, Amanda, we gotta get on our Zoom,
We gotta
honey.
get on our Zoom, y'all. 105K for one post?
Yeah.
That's more than people make in 2-3 years at some places.
Honestly. And I have a friend who has millions of followers, and she also gets six-figure deals.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
But you also
sounds about
don't need
right.
to have a ton of followers. Like I will say even as a micro influencer, you actually can, have some pretty large partnerships as well. So it's not really about the followers, it's all about your positioning and like who you are in the industry. Because there's plenty of people in the 100,000 followers, even 50,000 followers making really high 5 figure deals.
And as, like, a creator and a corporate girly, how long have you been working in, like, the creator space overall?
I have been working in the creator space for 8 years. So like corporate side and then also being a content creator. I've been a
Mhm.
content creator for 5 years.
So you have, I feel like myself and Amanda as well, but like we have all really seen the evolution of like the sponsor deals and the brand partnerships, like what it used to be versus like what it is now. Like, can we talk about that? Like, I feel like it has significantly changed.
Yes.
Yes, it definitely has, and it continues to change. I think that if we're being really honest, it changes several times within the year. This is such a new space. So if you are wanting to dive into the space, it's really important to kind of have your foot on, things and kind of have a pulse on things because it's constantly shifting, constantly changing. I always tell people if you want to be in this space, you cannot be someone who gets comfortable because what's working this month may not be what works next month. And we also know that politics plays a part in that, cultural nuances play a part in that. So you
Mhm.
kind of have to have your pulse on things so that you can see, like, oh, budgets are shifting this way, or this new app came out and now this content style is really what's kind of like working. So still being able to be true to yourself, but also have the mind of a marketer, which is what, when I talk to creators, I try to help them to understand, yes, you are a creator, but you also need to have the mindset of a marketer so you can kind of understand where budgets are going to flow to and where you're going to have the most impact.
No, I love that you say that because not only a marketer, but your own boss. Like when you're a
Mhm.
creator,
Yes.
it's so funny how, like, now I love the fact that people are giving creators their respect once they realize, like, oh, like, this is a real thing. I remember when first, like, influencing and creating, people were like, oh, you're a creator. Like, it was very frowned upon and people didn't take it serious till they heard about them checks. Okay.
Right.
And then people were like,
Right.
okay, wait, hold on. Then all of a sudden, everybody was trying to, like, get into it. And then everybody was realizing, like, oh, no, this is like a job. Like, this
Mhm.
is a full-time job, and you are playing multiple roles, wearing multiple hats. Like, you're being your own boss. You're understanding marketing. You're understanding, like, what the corporate offices are looking for. And I just feel like when you are a creator, and maybe this is just me personally, but it gets, like, overwhelming to be your own boss. Like,
So
you
true.
literally have, like, one side of your brain that has to do the work and be creative, and then the other side of your brain has to check the other side of your brain to make sure that it's doing the work when it says it's gonna do the work and, doing it to its highest capacity. It's like you literally have to be your own supervisor, and I don't know
Mhm.
about y'all, but that gets really overwhelming sometimes for me.
Yeah, same for me, and I'm so glad that you said that, and I'm sure Emmy probably can also, like, agree with me on this, but I feel like back in the days, like, my parents was not, like, really accepting the fact that I wanted to be, like, in journalism or in the content creator space. They're like, "Why don't you go be a doctor? Why don't you go be a nurse?" Like, and now they're like, "Oh, you get paid how much to do oh, okay, yeah, you can really do this." But you wanna know what's so interesting? I think that the content creating girlies that are doing really well and maybe not necessarily I don't want to say are not experiencing burnout, but are probably better managing it, also come from admin backgrounds. Like I feel like being like a executive assistant or like a chief of staff or when you're like in the admin world, I feel like it gives you a skill set to be able to like manage and do everything because you're right. Like as a creator, you have to do all of the things. Like you are finance, you are creative and marketing and, admin and all these things. But I think that burnout is real. Like a lot of us are experiencing it because you're trying to do so much. Like you
Mhm.
only can eat what you kill. So like if you're not, being able to, get brand deals and do stuff, you have to do everything. But I think managing it is like probably like the hardest part.
Absolutely. You're only one person, but at the same time, like Crystal mentioned and like you mentioned, you actually both mentioned the various roles within each side of this business, right? So, like, there's the creative side, and you are literally, producer, filmmaker, editor, your makeup, your hair, your all the things, even on the creative side. But then on the administrative side, because admin is not just it's emails, finance, invoices, it's forecasting. It's so many different things. So it's like you're using both sides of your brain in 10 different roles and 10 different capacities. So when people say being a content creator is not a full, babes, it's a job. It is like 40 jobs all in one, which is why brands pay us what they pay us because they would typically probably be paying 40 different salaries for what we're producing on our end, on our own. And what Amanda, what you just said about like the girlies who come from an admin background, I say this all the time. In my opinion, the most successful creators are either people who actually did really well in the corporate space because they've been able to manage and juggle different professional deadlines. They know how to like kind of work in a realm that you have to especially if you're in a role where you really have to perform really well and you have a lot that you're juggling, they tend to really transition pretty well in the content creator space. One, because they already know how to juggle things themselves, or they know how to delegate tasks. So, one thing that I always say is like, you know, don't be surprised when you see people who have teams that are doing a lot behind the scenes to help them because there's a lot to do in this space. If you are like a full-time content creator, if you scaled your business to, a certain level, there's a lot to be done. So having a team is very realistic in this space.
Yeah,
Ooh,
absolutely.
before we shift, can we talk about teams a little bit? Because I think there is this misconception that everybody needs a team as well. Like, I
Mhm,
feel you, Emmy, but sometimes, like, me and Amanda talk about this all the time, but it's like, if you're able to manage a lot of things yourself and like negotiate yourself, granted, like agents and managers, sometimes they can come in and like get you more money, but sometimes
mhm.
not. So I
Yep.
think it's also important to be realistic about what you need and when you need it, most importantly, because a lot of times I feel like people want to jump into content creating and be like, I need an agent, I need a manager. And
Mhm.
it's like, no, baby, you need to be consistent first. And
Oh,
Yes.
and and they're not realizing like when you get those things, you're also giving them a massive percentage. But
Mhm.
you also want to make sure that when you are bringing those people on, you have enough work to offset that percent that you're giving them. You know what I mean?
I think people use, like, the team as, like, a flex, like, "I have a team," but it's like, if you can't do the job of everybody on your team, then it's
Mhm.
not a flex, like, you should be able to do every
Yes.
single thing and have done every single thing before incorporating people into the fold, like, I feel like you can't really have a strong team if you don't know how important it is for every role and position that's played behind the scenes, and I feel like you also have to be at a certain level to have a team when it comes to, like, the content creating space as well.
Yep.
And that's just my take on how I feel about it.
I agree 1,000,000% with everything that you guys just said. And most importantly, the fact that you really don't need a team unless you are overwhelmed in like overburdened with work. I think a lot of people just jump into it kind of like, oh, I need management. I need this, not the other. There's nothing to manage. So why would you, automatically jump to the need of management? I think, and not even just management, but even like outsourcing certain things that you can potentially do and scale your business to the point where now you offset that to somebody else. And I always feel like as an entrepreneur, everything that is happening in your business, you should know how to do. Like, don't outsource something that you do not know how to do or that you cannot train somebody in the way that you would do it for your business. If you do that, you put yourself at a disadvantage of like, if that person leaves, now what happens? Now you've lost a leg of your business. And so it's super important. But I do want to say there is a certain point where you are going to need to get that help and get that team. Honestly, for me, like I waited too long. And a lot of the overwhelm now is like in trying to build a team while still managing the level that I've scaled to. So I would say once you scale, once you start to see yourself, okay, like I'm getting to a point where it's like it's getting unmanageable, start having those conversations then, because there is a point where it becomes like it's impossible for you to do everything anymore. But I do think that there is a real reality check that needs to happen sometimes, because I think sometimes people think that they need it way before they do.
Question for both of you guys. First question is, who's the first player on your team that you will hire? Go.
That's a really good question. I honestly, I would want one person that's kind of like a dual role, but I feel like instead of opting for like an agency, like of course that's always the goal as a creator. You want to be able to have an agency that represents you and has connections with so many brands so that you're able to work with all these different brands. But I feel like if you're not at that point, but you're working towards that, a really good person to have on your team is a lawyer, honey. Okay. Someone that can negotiate those contracts, that can read that paperwork, but then someone that simultaneously also like understands the creator space as well, to know like the proper things to ask and the things that you should be getting. So I think a good lawyer and a finance person, it would be the second, but lawyer, absolutely.
I agree. I agree to a certain extent as well too, because I actually was self-managed for multiple years before I even like signed on to management, which is why I always tell people learn to manage yourself first. But I would actually say getting an assistant who can kind of serve multiple purposes in your business is probably going to be like the best first hire, just because you're only one person, right? You're doing all these different things. Like if I look at how much time I spend organizing clothes, shipping out, or ordering clothes, making selects, steaming clothes. You're spending a lot of time doing that when you could actually be creating more content. So having someone who can kind of work hand in hand with you, doing the items that only they can do and that you can focus on the things that only you can do, you'll be able to produce 10 times over what you're already producing. And I think having a lawyer, instead of having a lawyer on retainer, I think it's probably wiser to hire a lawyer to teach you how to read contracts and understand contract terms, which is what I did. So book them for 2 hours, 3 hours. They can walk you through how to read through a contract, how to redline a contract. And then you only use that lawyer when you have some like really large deals. So when I was self-managed, anything that was under 10K, I would fully do that. I would redline myself unless it got really complicated. If it was a collaboration that's like involving like a collection or something like that, I would hire an attorney. And that's like typically, anywhere from $300 to $500, excuse me. So I wouldn't pay it a lawyer on retainer unless you're getting, these really large partnerships consistently. I would
Mhm.
prefer to learn how to read those contracts and redline them, and then kind of have that lawyer, there ready to go if you land this like really big partnership and you need them. Hey, I need you to like make sure my I's are dotted, my T's are crossed, all of that kind of thing. But finding someone who can kind of body double you and do the things that only you that they can do, that allows you to do the things that only you can do and produce 10 times more.
My other question was going to be, who do you guys think is the most important player on your team? But I feel like you guys kind of answered that with like
Mhm.
the lawyer and the assistant, because I feel like they're very important. So my next question for you guys is, when you're looking at these contracts, what are y'all looking for? Because I know myself, I'm always looking at the usage and exclusivity.
Mhm.
How about y'all?
I am looking at whether or not the legal terms and the legal agreement make sense for the rate that they're paying me. And of course, that then ensues What does usage look like? What does exclusivity look like? Does this contract withhold me from other opportunities? Is typically a really big question that's at my forefront because I'm not just getting paid for one reel in an Instagram story set. I'm getting paid for my likeness, and I need to know whether the level of the likeness that is being portrayed in this contract is going to withhold me from any other opportunities. To give an example, I recently had a brand partnership that came to me with a nice rate. 3-month long contract with a brand that I've worked with consistently, but it was through a different agency. And like I said, cool rate. However, they said that during that 3-month period, I would only be able to work with that brand through that one agency. And I had to see, like, is this going to make sense? Yeah, the number looks nice or whatever the case may be, but I'm going to be stuck working with this brand only with them throughout this 3-month process. And because they weren't willing to negotiate those terms, I turned down the partnership. Y'all, not even 2 weeks later, same brand through a different agency offers me a one-time deal, one reel, two stories for 3 times that rate.
Look at
So if
Wow.
God.
I would have said yes to that contract, it would have locked me out of that opportunity. So I'm always weighing out, not just like, okay, this rate looks good, like it's a nice 5-figure rate, but is this going to lock me out of any other opportunities? Is this going to be beneficial for my brand? Is it going to hold me back or is it going to move me forward? Just some general questions. Because I think sometimes we think contracts are super complicated. Read the contract and ask yourself, does this make sense for the rate that it is? Is it going to hold me back or is it going to push me forward?
I love that you're saying this because I think when you are mentioning, and thank you so much for your transparency on that too, but when you're mentioning this, literally two things stuck out to me. And it was one, all money isn't good money, and
Mm,
two, delayed and not denied. I
yeah,
think as a creator, sometimes we are hustling for the next check, right? If we're
yeah,
just literally just being fully honest about that. And I actually had that experience as well where I was like, okay, yes, the money does look good, and like people really sleep on that, like the usage and just being able to like work with other brands in this space. Like, yes, sometimes we can look from stuff from a lens of like, right now I'm getting this, but you don't know 6 months, 3 months, even like a month down the line what could be presented in your inbox or what could be presented in you to you that could be even greater than that. So sometimes
absolutely.
there's power in your yeses and your nos. You don't always have to agree to something, and I think it shows brands when you do say no how much more powerful you are, and that you're not just chasing the check. Like it's bigger than the money. Like it's literally like, okay, what am I standing for here? You know what I mean? You have to be very stern on what you want and just also know the power that you have as a creator. So I love that you said that.
I love that you said that as well. And I just want you to know, like, this is a full transparent, like, I'm a very transparent person. I think it's super helpful for people to understand the value that they have and also the leverage that they have, especially in this industry. And what you just said, I actually am more proud of my no's than I am my yeses. I made a thread last year at the end of the year because I think that it's always good to like share transparently, like, okay, this is what I was able to secure. And I think a lot of people were like, wow, that's amazing that you're able to secure that much. But then I also shared with them, like, I said no to over $100,000 in partnerships in 2024 because they just didn't align. It just wasn't going to make sense. But that doesn't hold you back from the right opportunities. And I think that we can often, in this rat race of content creation, just be like, yeah, I need a deal. I need a deal. But it's every deal is not a good deal. Like you said, all money is not good money. And saying no is more powerful sometimes than saying yes.
Baby, and that's not a light check, honey. That's a lot of money right there. So that's really big for you to have said that, because there's people that would have jumped to that occasion and been like, oh, I'm accepting it, and not really looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah. But once you look at the bigger picture and you're able to see it all in the land in like in a bigger view, you realize like, wow, if I would have said yes to this, I would have missed out on that. And I actually worked less and made more. So it's always good for us to kind of have these conversations and just really be honest because you don't have to say yes to everything. The right opportunity is going to come your way.
Yes. And I like that you're sharing that, because me and Crystal always talk about this on the podcast as well. We're so transparent, even as like TV host and, working in the entertainment space. We talk about, okay, how much is this brand paying you? What is this
Mhm.
brand giving you? Because we want to make sure that, we're aiming for the right numbers and asking the right questions as it relates to sharing our rates and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'm fully transparent with my creator circle. We're all very like open and sharing like, hey, are you on this campaign as well? Sometimes we'll just be talking and we end up finding out like, oh, we're both on the same campaign and maybe they got a different rate than me. So I'm able to go back and be like, hey, can we make this make sense kind of thing. I think there's so much power in that. And I think brands are starting to realize that there's a lot more conversations happening. So there's a lot more, integrity internally of like realizing like, yeah, we can't do that
Mhm.
because these people are talking to each other. And I think there's
Mhm.
so much power in that. I don't think that it's cute for you to be like, well, I got paid more than her or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the day, you're harming the whole industry. And it's us and our value. I don't want to make it seem like against the brands, but at the same time, we are supposed to be partners. And I think that in order for partnership to work, all partners need to be um, transparent and honest so that it's a level playing field for everybody. And so, yeah, absolutely. I've told my friends certain things. I've told my friends, hey, I was actually able to get my exclusivity reduced. Make sure you get yours reduced because I don't want you to be locked out of other partnerships. So, absolutely, being fully transparent and having those conversations is what's going to allow us to all win.
Yes. Well, speaking about transparency, y'all, I have to be honest for a second. It is hard. Like, let's be real. It is hard in this creative space. I know a lot of people see, like, oh, you're taking cute pictures and it looks like, highlight reels, but there's a lot like mentally that goes into like creating content and there's a lot. It takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
Are you guys feeling the shift right now from like just the sustainability of being a content creator? I feel like there were eras, like they had the YouTube era where like everybody wanted to be a YouTuber. There was an era now of content creating. Everybody wants to be a creator because they hear all these astronomical numbers that creators make. But like, do you guys feel like it's really sustainable to be a creator and like truly like make a living off of it? Do you guys feel like right now in the state of our economy and just like what's going on, it's smart to be a full-time creator? Or do you guys side with like people actually going back to work? Because that's what people are doing right now.
I am always going to say this. If you want to be a full-time content creator, it kind of requires a level of crazy. Like not to be rude, but you kind of have to be someone that is will because it's not even a regular entrepreneurship, regular entrepreneurship, you have said product, you have said service, you're able to market that product, you're able to market that service for a return that's typically like, a pretty quick exchange. With content creation, there's so much to it, which adds that mental layer because, like you said, you're basically selling yourself and selling yourself as value. And that could be really hard on you, especially when we're thinking about, like, oh my gosh, the algorithm's not picking up my content. I only got this many likes. Now you start attributing that to your value when we know that's not the case, but it can be something that people struggle with a lot and it's very real. So, in terms of sustainability, I think you can be a sustainable content creator, but you have to go into it with the mindset of creating a strategy that will allow you to be sustainable. I think for the most part, the way most people are approaching content creation, it's not a healthy practice. Like if you're saying like I'm just going to crank out content and wait for brand partnerships to come to me in good seasons and good economy, you're up. You're really happy and all is well with the world. But when things are shifting and things are moving around, that could take a huge toll on you. So I think it really comes down to, are you going to be someone who wants to, create different revenue streams so that you're not just relying on one thing, and also so that your value is not even just attributed to the algorithms and to your value on social media. Because I think that aside from money alone, right? Like there is a dopamine that hits when you're like, oh, my content went viral. What happens if it doesn't go viral? What happens if you slow down for 6 months? Do you still see the value in what you're doing? Are you still feeling like purposeful in what you're doing? And I think that those are real questions that people need to ask. And as for me and my house, I love the girlies going back the corporate route. Like there is nothing more joyful than creating content from a place of like true like joy. I will always say like I was probably like doing my best as a content creator when I was working full time. Like I will always say that because I didn't have to create it. I created it because I
Right.
wanted to. And
Mhm.
everything that I made was like extra on top of what I was already doing. Now, is it easy? It's not. But I think that some people, if they're honest with themselves, they'll be happier to have something that's sustainable and like very stable, and then also be doing content on the side, building your wealth, continuing to make extra revenue. But I think that maybe we put a pressure on ourselves that because you're a content creator, you have to be full time. You don't have to be full time. It could be an extra revenue stream for you, and you might even be happier that way.
Yeah, I'm with you, Emmy. I'm down for the 9 to 5. Like, getting money to me is never a problem. Like, so
Never.
I'm all for like however you gonna get it, girl, go ahead and get it. And if it makes you more comfortable to make content from, sitting at an office 9 to 5 or not to make content at all, because that's another
Mhm.
thing. It's like I think there's like a pressure on social media to for everybody to be content creators. And the reality is sometimes there's got to be a chef and there's got to be cooks in the kitchen. And not
Come on.
everybody needs to play the chef role, and not everybody needs to play the cook role. You get what I'm saying? Some people can be on social media and just enjoy the entertainment that the content creators are creating for them. So I'm very much with you, like 9 to 5 me all day.
Also, when did having a job be a bad thing? Like, I think that,
Right.
like, when was, like, you going to your job, getting a salary, having benefits, literally having structure and not having to, think twice about where the money's coming from? When was that a bad thing? Like, I think
Mhm.
that society puts so much, like, pressure on people to be an entrepreneur, like you said, Krystal, and, like, everybody doesn't wanna be an entrepreneur. I really think that we have to, like, as a society, take a step back and stop making people feel
Mhm.
like there's something wrong with having
Right.
stability. Like,
Yeah, cause might I recall during COVID when everybody
yes.
was losing their jobs left to right, people were praying for,
Mhm.
praying for to not be laid off from their job. People were praying for new opportunities to come their way. So, like, hashtag never forget. Never forget.
For real. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking because I remember Krystal was here in Miami and I was in Alabama at the time working on my lifestyle show that I was on, and we were talking, we were like, "Yo, it's so crazy." Like, we almost felt like I'm trying to think of the word. We almost felt like, "Oh my goodness." Like, I felt one, we obviously felt bad for our peers who weren't able to work,
Mhm.
consistently like us, but I almost felt a sense of, like,
Gratitude.
gratitude. Yeah, like, gratitude for, like, being grateful that I even had, something during that
Yes.
time. I listen, I will always say it, I agree with you guys, like, I think that there is no shame in having a 9 to 5. If anything, I think that you're up in some
Hello. Clock
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Emmy, but you mentioned like having a strategy so when the economy, the creator economy is not going so hot, you're still able to like stand on it. Like, what does that strategy look like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, and I think even just what we were just talking about, like, I don't know about you guys, but given the landscape of everything, eh, one job is just never going to be it in like Western society, because you just never know. Like, there's layoffs. You could be a content creator, up one day, down one day, whatever the case may be. But for me, as a full time content creator, at this point, it's like I don't want to solely just rely on brand partnerships. I actually like to view brand partnerships now as like that's the extra, right? Like that's the overflow. Um, but being able to have different revenue streams within brand partnerships. So whether that be brand partnerships that I'm actually posting on my social media, but I do a lot of like UGC content as well with the brands that I work with that I post on social media. I sell them content. I sell them photo content. I sell them video content. I sell them content that they can run as ads, content that they can use in their newsletters. So I'm not just relying on what people see on social media. I'm providing other levels of work, even modeling for certain brands as well. So maybe I worked with them on a paid campaign, but now they actually need me to come on set and model different clothes or whatever the case may be. So creating different revenue streams within each pocket. Affiliate revenue, like I think that's a huge one, and if I'm really being honest, it's mainly us, like my POC Black and brown content creators that are not really tapping into our affiliate bag. And there's people making millions of dollars just off of their affiliate revenue, which is a very consistent flow because it's really all you, right? You're not waiting for a brand to cut you a check. You're just sharing what you're already sharing what you love. And that is also a reoccurring kind of like cash flow. So 30, net 30, net 60. Whereas sometimes with brand partnerships, it could be 3, 4, 5 months before you got paid for that partnership. So just making sure that I have like different revenue streams. So even within affiliate marketing, I have 4 or 5 different like consistent platforms that I get paid from month to month. And then also when we think about the different platforms that we're on, so AdSense from YouTube, just from creating content, generating revenue that way. So you can make money on Facebook, you can make money on Instagram, YouTube. Snapchat is a new one that I'm trying to get into because there's a lot of girlies making a bag on Snapchat. So
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
me, if you really want to be a full-time content creator, and I'm saying this with love because I've seen so many people struggle of like maybe one year they're up with brand partnerships and the next year it's like, where are the partnerships? Do not rely solely on brand partnerships. You want to be a full, because there's also nothing wrong with wanting to be a full-time content creator. I think that it is a job that requires a lot. So if you do like really enjoy this and you want to do this, come at it from a lens of a strategic standpoint of like, I need to be making X amount of dollars here, here, here. These are my different revenue streams that allows me to be a healthy earner in this industry that is kind of, I wouldn't say it's volatile, but because it's always growing, but there's shifts in like priorities. So you want to be someone who's able to tap into all the different priorities and is making revenue from all of them.
I love that you're sharing that because I always say this too, and it's in the Bible. Like, we're supposed to be at least able to make 7 streams of income. And
Yes.
that's literally one career that you mentioned more than 7 streams of income
Yes.
that you're able to receive from this. And I think the biggest takeaway is that in order to be a successful content creator as it relates to the different streams that you're developing and creating is the community that you're building. And I know you share a huge community on Instagram, over 215K followers on Instagram alone. What do you feel like is your biggest success when it comes to the brand, your brand and the community that you're building that to be able to support you with the links that you post on your social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Community is your biggest asset as a content creator. If you don't have community, like you don't really have anything as a content creator. And I think it's just trust, you know? And that's why I said before, it's not necessarily about the numbers in terms of like, okay, I'm getting this many likes or, I'm generating this much revenue. If people trust you, that is the most invaluable asset that you have, truly. And so for me, my purpose is it's really deep. It runs deep for me. I share, fashion, particularly for mid-size, plus size, curvy women, which, I took something that was an insecurity for me and turned it into impact, which generated income, right? So taking something that like gives you purpose and allows people to trust you, you're never going to lose in that way because people see that. They see the heart in that. So I think for me, being able to speak to products that are like very helpful to women like me is what has allowed me to be able to create an affiliate revenue stream that doesn't make me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just pushing sales. People find that very valuable. So figure out ways that your brand, no matter what, whether it be entertaining, whether it be educational, that you are providing value to somebody and you will never lose, honestly.
I love that. You know what, y'all? Our podcast, honestly, like I know I say this probably quite often for all of our listeners that tap in so much, but I feel like our podcast is so fulfilling to me because I feel like it helps us like just learn from each other and grow from each other from just the different things that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. And I know we were talking about, the girlies going back to work and, just kind of having that stable income. But I'm gonna be honest, you guys, I think it's hit me more being that I'm getting older, just thinking about like retirement and like finding stability from one being a content creator, but thinking about like the long-term plan. So I kind of wanted to ask both of you, like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing? Because we don't have a typical 9 to 5. So we may not have a 401k and all these different things. Like, what are some things that you guys are doing to make sure that you are securing yourself for the long haul?
Yeah, I actually have hired a wealth advisor because I think if you are going to go the route of entrepreneurship, and this is probably the non sexy stuff that people don't really talk about as often, if you're doing this, if you're making money, like, yeah, it's cute and all to have, cute clothes or whatever the case may be, but like, how are you planning for your future? So I have hired someone to help me develop the 401ks, the Roth IRAs, all of that, and gave her like, hey, this is when I would love to retire by. This is how much I'm making. What do I need to do? How much do I need to save? Because you don't know how long this is gonna last. I'm not someone who is like completely like risk averse and thinks that this is what I'm going to be doing forever. I would love to, but the reality is, while God has given me this blessing, I want to be able to make sure that I'm stewarding it well and planning for my future and planning for the next thing. Like, what is the next thing? So, if you are full time entrepreneur, full time content creator, get in connection with someone who can help with your wealth strategy, planning for life insurance, Roth IRAs, your retirement strategy as a whole, so that you kind of have that at the forefront as well in everything that you're doing.
A lot of us aren't, and, like,
Yeah.
that's also the other side of the reality. It's like people are still figuring it out because a lot of us are just tied up in, like, creating the content and not really thinking about,
Yeah.
okay, health insurance and 401ks or whatever, like, that retirement plan might look like. So I'm thankful that you were able to give that different perspective on, like, what we should be doing because
Well,
child, a
please
lot.
don't. I don't want to make it seem like I have it all figured out. Like, I actually feel like I should have been doing this like 2 years ago, but now I'm doing it, right? So it's like, also free yourself from like, it's okay if you haven't started. It's so funny because when I had my meeting with my wealth advisor, she was like, you're still young, you know? So like, also like transparently, it's okay. Wherever you are right now, book it now, like do it now. Whether or not you feel, you know, like don't feel guilty about it. I feel like it's one of those things like when you start is the perfect time to start. So just do it.
And you don't have to make a lot of money to be able to
No.
put money away. Like you can literally start small and then as you build and grow, you could put away more money. There's like so much that you could be doing instead
Yeah.
of shopping. Cause that's what we gotta talk about stuff. You don't need those nice things now. Wait till later.
Mm-hmm.
Ciao. I also feel like as a creator, like I kind of said before, it's like we are overwhelmed with just doing the creating and setting up the affiliate links, doing the UGC this, doing the UGC that. I feel like, we really preserve little to no time for the actual important things to make sure we're set up for the future. And I also feel like kind of like a part of just being or seeing creators is like there's this myth of freedom and, like, sitting here talking to you guys, I'm like, "Wow, like, creators low-key ain't got no freedom." Like, the way we be thinking because the way our schedules are stacked up with all these different things is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So can we
Yeah.
talk about, like, what freedom actually looks like as a creator versus, like, what it looks like on social media? Because I feel like those are very different things.
Yeah, for sure. I think what we said before too, of like, I think a lot of people who enjoy creating content and enjoy this space, you could be looking at someone who's making big numbers, but you don't realize that sacrifice that they have. You might be, Gary Vee talks about this all the time, and I love that he says it. Some people might actually be happier making $80,000 a year. Some content creators will probably be happier making, 80 to 100K versus once you scale up and now you have so much more responsibility, so much more on your plate. It really just depends on the person. So I think that instead of just viewing like, okay, do I want to be a content creator? Or do I want to work full time? What do you want your life to look like? Be really honest with yourself. Cause I've had to be honest with myself more recently of like, okay, like realistically, this is what I want my life to look like. So I need to make sure my business models the life that I want to live, not necessarily just being a successful business. And so I think that that might be helpful so that we're not just like chasing, the next thing, the next thing. I will say, like, this industry will make you feel that way. Like, you just need to keep chasing the next thing. But what if the next thing is not even going to make you happy? So, like, ask yourself what would make you happy?
Yeah, that's so true. That's very true, which is why I think, it's so powerful we're having this conversation because I think your overall happiness and what brings you joy, people feel that. Um, being that, people are kind of going back to work and there are people who want to still content create as well. What are some things that you guys think people should be doing to be able to be successful in both areas? And then this is a two-sided question. The other part is, and at what point do you guys think they should quit if they do want to quit their job? Like, where is a good point to be like, okay, I'm going to do this full time. This is like just becoming unbearable to be able to do both. So it's like two sides of that question, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think definitely scheduling, creating a schedule and holding yourself accountable to make sure that you're balancing things properly. But I also feel like Emmy is probably more equipped to answer question two.
I actually would say if you're gonna do like if you're gonna be working a 9 to 5 job, yes, scheduling, but I would also say documenting versus creating, right? Not necessarily having like a completely different routine just to create content, but I was actually like super happy when I was working my 9 to 5 and I was just documenting my outfits every single day. And I grew like almost 150,000 followers in like 6 months just by doing that. And it didn't feel like a huge lift. Like I wasn't overwhelming myself with this big burden. It was just every day I would just film my outfit real quick before I went to work or before I worked from home. So if you document like while you're doing things, then you don't feel like you have this like added job. Of course, there's like little editing here and there, but if I feel like, okay, I had to do my 9 to 5 and then I also have to like now book in time to batch create content, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you can do both, do it. But I think documenting will actually allow you to be a little bit happier. So you're not feeling so much, strain and stress on yourself. And also that content works a lot better, to be honest with you. Um, and then in terms of like leaving your job, right now, anyone that talks to me about like wanting to leave their job, I want to make sure that you're making, I would say 4 to 5 times more than what you need a month. Because once again, taxes, business expenses, it's a completely different world once you're kind of like full-time entrepreneur. But also that you're making money from different revenue streams, right? So I don't think at this point, like the way that I quit my job, I would never advise anybody to do it that way, like never. I think that it's not just about how much you're making in brand partnerships each month or how much you're making in general each month. It's about how much you're making from all the different avenues that you have. And if you were to need to shift to one more than the other, you have that flexibility to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that you have to think about how much you would need at least for half the year to be able to survive. So like saving that and then, feeling like, okay, but also like I think you have to be a good you have to manage your time really well. Like I think that you should be putting or pumping out what you would pump out as a full-time content creator while you have your full-time job.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to save this money and then be a full-time content creator. Where it's like, baby, you got the 9 to 5, your 5 to 9 needs to be the content. Like you
Mhm.
really need to be operating in that space before you even have it and seeing how well you do. There's like so many content creators that still have a full-time job. Like you guys will be surprised. Some people probably just don't share that they're
Mhm.
working, but they
Mhm.
still have that stable income and then they're doing
Mhm.
content creating on the side.
There's like an uptick in people enjoying content from creators who are going to work. I
Mhm.
don't know about y'all, but people are really
Mhm.
enjoying that. Like, and brands are liking it too. Brands to me are
Mhm.
starting to lean more into the marketing girly going to work, the this going to that, the this going to that. Like, really, like content that is more relatable. Like, I know we all love like the luxurious sort of romanticized content, but I think what's becoming really popular and really like focused on and like really wanted is content from creators who are actually going to 9 to 5s.
Mhm. 100%. I think we want content and let's just be real. I think maybe because we're in the content creator space, like we know a lot of people who work from home and have the quote unquote content creator freedom per se, but 90% of the world is not living that life, right? So you're actually at an advantage if you have a job in creating content because more people can, resonate with your content and relate to your content. Now, relatability is a whole other conversation. I don't necessarily fully agree that like you need to be relatable for people to enjoy your content, but there is such a bigger opportunity there for someone to see themselves in your content if you are going to work, right? And you're probably at a better advantage, honestly, because most people don't live the life where you're just kind of like, oh, I wake up and I can do, I can manage my schedule however I want to and just create content. There's probably only like 3% of the world that's doing that. So that's not as
Mhm.
relatable.
Mhm.
So I gotta ask you guys because as we talk about like creating content, I'm gonna be honest, and maybe it's just me.
Spill the tea.
Unpopular opinion. Who do y'all think works the hardest when it comes to content creating? Would you say it's millennials or Gen Z? Because I feel like Gen Z be giving us a run for our money. What do you guys think?
It's just so second nature to them.
Right? It's like
As it
they
should
came out
be
the
though,
womb
because
editing.
no, literally. But you know what? I think it goes to what Emmy was saying. I think they're just so good at documenting that it's
Yes.
like easy to them. They roll over and they're on it. Like, but
Mhm.
also they've spent more time with the internet in terms of like when they're
Mhm.
growing, they grew up on the internet more than
Mhm.
us. And this is still very new to us, like in our age group. I don't know if I'm telling our age, but who cares? Because we're in our 30s.
We're in our
And
30s.
right. And like we really got on the internet maybe like 16, like Gen Z, they on the internet at like 9, like so they are growing up in this and I think it's just very much second nature. They got hands.
They got their hands. And you know what else I think it is too? What I think they are finding a little more success in, and not to say millennials aren't successful. I think there's tons of millennials that are successful. I'm always going to vouch for us, but I think that they don't care about the aesthetics as much as
Yep.
we do. Like they don't care if we could take like an Alex Earl, for example. Like we've seen like a lot of content from her, like come with me on this date or like I got wasted or whatever the content is that she's producing. But it's like realistically, that's what some people experience. And she doesn't care what the internet thinks about her. And I think that's where she's found so much success. And I think us millennials, we're a little bit like, okay, we're going to keep it cute. We may not necessarily show all the sides to us,
Mhm.
but I think that's where they are somewhat being successful is that they're putting out the content and they don't care because let's be real. I always say this about just like the news cycle. You can read something last week. I'm sure everything that we thought was, oh my gosh, the big news last week. 3 months later, you're not going to care about it. And I think that's how
Mhm.
we should think about content. Yes, people are going to see, sometimes you may see someone like your content from like months ago or it become, viral, something you posted like maybe a year ago. But
Mhm.
I think if we approach content from the perspective of like, you just have to rinse and repeat and consistently do these things,
Mhm.
people are going to be, more inclined to want to consume that content because it's like you're being consistent and not worried about like this one piece of content. Like you just got to put it in the universe and let it go. And I think they do a really good job of that.
I love the idea of like just putting things in the universe and like use Alex Earl as an example. Like just put it out there, it doesn't matter. However, as women, I feel like we're held to a different standard. And as women of color,
Yes,
we're
this is
held
true.
to an even more different standard. But
Very
I'm with
true.
you. I'm with you in
Ooh,
terms
But
of like just put it
I
out
also
there.
don't like that. I
me
feel
neither.
Hate
I
it.
feel like, and you and I have had this conversation too, Krystal, like we've talked about like the Clarks and stuff like that, like, and the Monet McMichaels. Like, I think that if women of color, people of color, Black women want to put out that content, I don't feel like we should be looked at less
Yeah.
than because they're getting a lot of, brand deals and so on and so forth. And I think that
They sure
people of
are.
color and Black women should be getting the same amount and we shouldn't be looked at a different way because we
Mhm.
also have some of those experiences as well. And we should be able to freely share that and not be looked at a certain way because of who we are. Like
Mhm.
I get that we always have to be twice as good and, always, make sure that we're holding ourselves to a certain standard. But realistically, like I feel like if we wanted to put out that type of content, why do we have to be treated differently?
Honey, I don't know why, and I'm with you, but at the same time, unfortunately, I feel like that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's
Wait,
just the way it is.
question. Can I play devil's advocate real
Yes.
quick?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because I agree with everything that's being said, right? But the reality is, and Crystal, we are held to a different standard, 100 million percent. But when it comes to content creation, who are we being held to that standard by?
Clock it.
Because
Absolutely.
here's my thing. I actually feel like we have been held to such a standard by our counterparts for so long. It always had to be 10 times better, whatever the case may be, that we have now internalized that and now we hold each other to that standard. Because at the end of
Mhm.
the day, the people watching Alex Earl's content, those are her white counterparts. The people that are watching our content, those are our black counterparts. And we do have content creators who are similar to Alex Earl who are black, but the people who are actually being like rude and not really engaging with their content is their fellow Black content creators. And why is
Mm.
that? I've actually talked about this on TikTok. I think that we expect Black excellence from each other in all things because it's been expected of us. And so we almost have to break that trauma within ourselves and allow people to show up wholeheartedly as themselves.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you know what's so funny? It's more for me, it's more of an internal thing more than the expectations I'm holding other
Yes.
people to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really because like coming from a media background, like as a news reporter, I am wired in my brain personally, like can't say certain things. Straight up.
Yes.
Like can't say certain things, like shouldn't say certain things. But guess what? When I see Cardi B wilding on the internet, I'll be like, yes, get a Cardi.
Same.
Tell
I'm like,
them. You get what I'm saying?
listening.
Because guess
Yes.
The
what?
memes, the
Behind closed
memes.
doors, yes, because behind closed doors, I'm the same way. Like,
Right.
but I think to your point, like, it is really about like to both of y'all points, it's like really about like not caring. But I
Mm-hmm.
always feel like, and me personally, and I don't know if our listeners can like really relate to this, but I always have that internal battle with myself where I'm like, be yourself, like, and really when I say they, hold us to a certain standard, I'm talking about the brands. I'm talking about the brands. I'm talking about the platforms. Like, I'm talking about them. Like they hold us to a certain level, but then there's also that other side. It's like, well, guess what? If I have 2 million followers, they're not gonna care.
That is
Yeah.
Because
so
guess
true.
what? They're
Yeah.
Yep.
not gonna care like they don't care about Cardi B and say certain things and she still
Yeah.
got deals. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, I think also at the end of the day, whatever you put out in the atmosphere and when you put it on the internet, you can't delete it. So I think you just have to be very okay with what you put out there. But I agree with you. I think that we hold each other to a certain standard that sometimes it's unattainable. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna be this excellent person in all aspects. And I think that's what makes us as human beings so magnificent is that there's so many levels to us. There's so many like parts to us. Like we're not just one form. We're literally boxing ourselves in by just being this one person. Like
Yeah.
you can literally do anything. And I think that one thing I did want to mention is not only as creators, but people that also are consuming content, we have to do a better job in uplifting each other. I think, Emmy, you
Mhm.
mentioned this too, like a lot of the times I feel like we're like not necessarily liking, commenting, or engaging in some things. And you don't realize that sometimes like we mentioned, like the success of like an Alex Earl, that's what I think she benefits off of is that the people that consume her content are cheering her on. Sometimes
Mhm.
a Black creator or a person of color can do that same thing, and then you'll look at the comments and they're like maybe saying negative things and not necessarily like cheering them on the way, or
Mhm.
they should be. And I feel like I don't really like that sometimes. Do you guys see that, or do you guys experience that sometimes?
Honestly, I'm not a hater, so I ain't never did that before.
No,
And
not
I
you
feel
per
like
se, but like be a witness of like how the shift is when it relates
Yeah.
to like engagement for like a person of color or a Black person to, a
no,
white
I
person.
actually think that no, I really think that Alex Earl, and we just gonna keep using her as an example because like she's doing amazing and I love her. Like I love that for her. Like she's just this young hot girl who is getting her money. Love
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
But but she got haters too.
Yeah,
Like, she's just
exactly.
not paying attention to them, and if you look at a Monet McMichael, who's on the
Clock
same
it.
trajectory as Alex Earl, they never engage with negativity for the most part,
Mhm.
and the one time they do, you see them crash out on the internet, they're crying, they're like, "Damn," like, they got caught in it, you get what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
for the most part, they're not paying attention to them. In fact, they're probably, like, blocked on TikTok, you can't say this word, you can't say that word because
Mhm.
that's their phone.
Yep.
They pay that bill,
Mhm.
and they carry that energy. So I think that when I am looking at other like Black or brown creators, a lot of times like I feel like I see a lot of positivity.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe that's because I'm wired to look at the positive
Mhm.
I think
in
we
everything.
actually have like a higher engaged community. I feel like the
Mhm.
Black community is actually very invested in engaging in content. But I think what Crystal just touched on, which is the key point, is that you cannot expect positivity from everyone, right? If you are going to be this content creator who is authentically yourself and show up and like you don't care, you truly can't care. You have to kind of like look past that. Even Clark gets a lot of negativity about the way she dates or whatever the case may be, but she doesn't care. She keeps posting and she keeps sharing. So I think that in the same way, we're talking about people with cult followings here as well. Like these are not just like your regular, average content creators who have, a standard community. These have cult communities. And so with cult communities come the extremists who don't like you as well. And you just cannot pay them any mind. If you want to be that type of creator, you have to show up wholeheartedly as you, not looking to be kind of like a dissension or like someone that people don't agree with, but being okay with the fact that most people are not going to agree with a lot of what you do and
Mhm.
still showing up for those people who love you.
Yeah, you have to have thick skin as like a
Mhm.
creator. You literally cannot internalize anything anyone says because they're behind their phone, they're behind a computer. Like they're not showing their faces or putting in the work that you are doing. And you don't want to let someone's negativity like just be the downfall to all the work that you've been building as a creator. So you just have to just chuck the deuces and keep going.
Emmy, we was chatting, girl. I
Yes.
feel like our listeners are gonna have their like pens to paper this entire episode. I feel like we were not only like just like having like great conversation, but also giving tangible tools for people to take away and like implement into their everyday lives. So
Yeah,
thank you for coming
absolutely.
on.
Thank you for having me. This was such a good conversation. So I really appreciate being on. And I hope that, any aspiring content creators or current content creators find a lot of like insight in this and hope.
So
Yes.
there's one thing that we do at the end of our show, and
Ooh.
if you don't have one, it's totally fine, but we love to leave our listeners and viewers with an elevation message. So, would love to know any sort of like advice or like motivational, quote you want to leave with them. For Amanda, you as well.
Yeah, so if you guys don't mind, I'll actually start. I think it was my mug that I actually brought on the show today, and I think it's like really perfect for the conversation. It says, "Nevertheless, she persisted." And I think that's what we all are doing in the spaces that we're in is no matter the cards that we're dealt, no matter, the highs and lows of being a content creator and just in this workspace, I think that what the beauty and what both Crystal, you and Emmy, what you do, and I admire is that you guys are persistent. You continue to keep moving forward. And I think that's all you need to be able to do, like in this world, in this space, is just if you fail fast and keep going. Like just continue to just be the amazing person that you are. And there is a space for everybody. So I think we all should just keep consistent and be persistent.
I love that. I think for me, something that I've been resonating on a lot, and especially as a full-time content creator, I think something that I lean into is you cannot get good at what you don't do. So if you want to be a content creator, or if you want to be full-time, or even if you want to kind of dibble and dabble in both content creation and a 9 to 5, focus on doing the things that you're kind of like afraid of and you feel like you're not good at so that you can get better at them and you can monetize them or whatever the case may be. But if you're not doing it right now, it's going to be really hard for you to get good at it. So you cannot get good at what you do not do. So go do that thing tomorrow. And, maybe continuing to do that will allow you to be great at it one day.
Yes. Oh my God, I love this.
Me
Thank you guys
too.
so much. This was so good. Emmy, again, thank you so much for coming on our show. We really appreciate you. Make sure you guys like, comment,
Absolutely.
subscribe, flood our comments, flood Emmy's comments when she posts this on her story or wherever she's gonna post it. Make sure you guys are showing love. Leave us a review on YouTube. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we will catch you guys on the next episode of Elevators.
That's right. Thank you,
Bye.
Emmy. We love you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
I
guys
love
for
you too. Bye,
listening.
Jules.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.